a guy who knows a thing or two about opening up the season against Arizona, John Beck. He did it his senior year on the road. BYU will do so in Las Vegas. He is with us over Zoom. John, welcome back to the show. How are you?
What's up, fellas? I'm doing good. Thanks for bringing up the Arizona loss, though. Jeez.
We both drove to that game as fans, by the way.
I didn't say anything about the loss. I just said that you opened up the season against Arizona, and maybe that shaped that fantastic season you had losing that game, John. Who knows?
I don't know. I would have much rather won it and then done the rest of the year winning all those games.
Let's talk about your guitars on the wall. Do you play?
Yo, those are my sons. You like that?
Oh, nice.
I turned over the wrong shoulder there. I'm getting confused because of the thing on my camera. Yeah, it's my son. I got a big guitarist. He loves it.
That's awesome. So Harleen gives him lessons or what?
Johnny and I have had a lot of talks, actually, because I called Johnny saying, hey, what should my son do? I only dabble here and there on the guitar, but Johnny was unbelievable. So I'm like, look, I want you to be more like Johnny on the guitar and less like me.
John Beck on BYU Sports Nation. Okay, we just got done talking about Zach Wilson and we're going to call it a rough weekend, even though it was one scrimmage and like essentially one half of football in a scrimmage format, but the numbers were not great. Jets fans kind of had a meltdown. Then other people got involved, and it kind of spiraled out of control on Twitter. So my question for you, John, is how do you handle this? What's the proper way to handle this if you are Zach Wilson moving forward after his first really bad day as a professional?
I'm going to use some advice that Bob Greasy gave to me when I was a rookie quarterback for the Dolphins. As he just said, look, everything you do is actually a positive. Whether it's an interception, a sack, a misread, all those things that can be viewed as negatives in the long run are actually positives. And what people don't know, here's the thing that people don't know. The New York Jets defense is throwing a lot at Zach. They're not like holding any punches because it's the beginning, right? Coach Saleh is throwing a lot of difficult looks at Zach right now. And it's going to be a good thing because I would much rather have him facing those difficult looks, making some mistakes now, as opposed to when the regular season starts. He's going to see more vanilla looks in the first preseason game than what he's getting at practice right now. So to me, back to the Bob Greasy statement, whether or not they're chalking up, good practice, bad practice, and they're trying to keep this chart of like, is Zach a good quarterback? All those practices that right now people say weren't good practices, at the end of the day, those are positives for his development. So I look at that practice like, that's great that he had that. Let him have that. Let him learn from all those things because that's how he's going to grow and mature as a quarterback.
When it comes to the Jets, historically, this has not been a place you've wanted to go be a quarterback, right? Yet, hopefully, this is different. Mike LaFleur coming from, the Shanahan system, which was what you ran with Washington, right? And that staff was there. Do you feel like this is a place where he can really have some success? Because historically, it's not, but we're hoping now it's different.
Yeah, there are definitely franchises that historically have had tough times, and you can probably say the Jets are one of those, right? Here and there, they put together these great seasons. But to me, I love the challenge of that. I think that Zach, being the competitor that he is, he probably is enjoying, okay, cool, I'm at this place. It's a challenge. I love challenges. Let's all work together as a group and let's get this thing done. That's exciting if you're a competitor. Now, Mike LaFleur, I'm so excited to see Mike grow as an offensive coordinator. He was heavily involved in a lot of things in San Francisco's system. People don't always know exactly all the things he was involved in, but he was an integral part of those offensive game plans. So now this is his first opportunity to get out and be the play caller. And I'm really excited to see Zach and Mike and the rest of that staff grow together. And it's because of the people that are there that I believe in him. You talk to anybody around the league, their head coach is well-respected, well-liked. People are saying, like, hey, this team of guys that they're putting together could do something special at a place that has had some tough years. And to bring in Zach, a young quarterback that they get to develop, to me, it's an exciting time. And yes, there's going to be bumps in the road, right? For a quarterback to have to start as a rookie, it's not easy. And for an offensive coordinator it's going to be his first complete season calling plays the entire year, there's going to be games at the end of it where he's going to say, man, I wish I would have done this different. I probably could have done that different. The cool part is through all those experiences, just like I said for Zach, there's coaches in that building. Even if it's viewed as a negative in the moment, it actually is a positive in the long run.
John, you're obviously very close with Zach, and I've worked with him on a consistent basis for a long time now. he is a professional, so that distance is naturally in between you guys. So how much interaction and communication do you have with him now?
I mean, we communicate quite often. I try to not engage as much this time of year because I know that he has so much going on. That training camp schedule, there's so much going on. I remember as a player, when you love ball and you love the challenge and you love all that, it's sometimes hard to turn it off. And so I try to view Zach in the same way. What he needs to do is have things that aren't talking football in his life when he's away from there. So this time of year, it's really when he reaches out to me saying, hey, this is going on. What can I do? Or that type stuff. I mean, I love to kind of check up on all my quarterbacks. Hey, how are things going? But this time of year, it is football sun up to sundown. And those guys need time to kind of not be talking football.
Perhaps the next BYU starter we'll see in the next days, weeks. Jaren Hall has started working out with you. What was it like to work out with Jaren, and what are some of the things that you guys talked about?
A lot of fun. Loved having Jaren out here. He's a hard worker, very focused guy. It was cool to see somebody that was a dual sport athlete have an opportunity to now say, I'm all football. And some of the things that he did in baseball are going to help him in quarterbacking. But Jaren's a very easy guy to be around in the way that he prepares for the workouts. He's very dedicated as well. I'm really looking forward to kind of see Jaren grow throughout this process. This is probably the first time in a long time that he's had this many reps kind of as the guy in a starting competition. In the meeting rooms, he's viewed as a guy to potentially be the starter. That hasn't been the case, right? And also he had spring ball where he got to play all through spring ball. That's the first time he's been able to do that in a while. So for me, I'm just excited to see his growth from week one in training camp to now what does he look like a couple weeks down the road and leading up to that Arizona game.
Former BYU quarterback great John Beck with us on BYU Sports Nation. In terms of a skill set, where has Jaren Hall improved the most from the spring to where he is now?
I'm going to use the term repeatability. Jaren's a very athletic guy who's capable of doing a lot of things. But you got to be able to be very repeatable. And that's something that we worked on. It's something that I don't like comparing Zach to Jaren, whoever the next quarterback is going to be, but I do like to use some of the things that I saw Zach improve on. And repeatability is absolutely one of those things. And when people ask me, why do professional quarterbacks come to you guys? Why would a guy that was a top pick, he's already had success, why would he go to you guys? A lot of it is for that very same thing, repeatability. When the defense gives you an opportunity to strike on something that is in rhythm, you have to be able to do it consistently and repeatedly. And for me, that's what Jaren worked on. Hey, when I have those throws that I know I can take, it may be in a little bit of tight coverage, but I'm going to be so good that I can nail that 9 out of 10 times. That's the things that we worked on with Jaren. I think that's what I'm hoping is happening at practice, that those things are showing up where when you're in 3-by-1 and that backside one-on-one is there and you know you got free access up there's my son. You guys get to see him walking through.
Which son was that? Was that
he
Ty?
Has no idea right now. He has no idea right now. He was just on BYU TV cruising with his shirt off. Well,
hey, at least he had
in the Beck house.
At least he had shorts on,
And there's the way.
Which son was that?
That's Ty.
Ty, named after Ty Demmer. Love it. He's been on the show. He's been on the show. 2015, he was on the show.
First appearance on BYU TV, shirt off.
I think that's our first shirtless appearance. We might lose the shirts later in the show now, but
well, Kyle Collinsworth thinks this is a great idea.
Yes, he does.
You know what? I wonder what BYU fans are going to do now on Twitter. You talk about Twitter blowing up because of things. Who knows what type of thing my shirtless son walking around behind me. So back to the repeatability. When you're in certain situations and you want to take advantage of something that you can call it a gimme, but that really drives a dagger in defenses. And I saw Zach improve sequentially over the years in that. And you want to ask, how can you help a quarterback get his completion percentage up? A lot of times an offensive coordinator can do that with play calling. But there's also this thing, if you look at games, here or there are throws in games that if you have a repeatable quarterback, that's a few percentage points. That's a few more third down conversions in a game. And that's what I'm hoping that we see a big improvement in Jaren, because that's what we worked a lot on.
What does he already do really well that you see that you want to fine-tune and help him create repeatability? But what does he already do well?
Play ball. There are times where we work out here and he's trying to work on these finely tuned mechanical things. And at times, from a player's standpoint, you could be thinking too much. And what I love about Jaren is there are times when I just say, hit the pause button, go play. Just let your natural abilities take over. Sometimes we have to do this with Dak Prescott when we're training. Dak is trying so hard. He cares so much. He's so engaged mentally in the workout. But sometimes we just have to say, take a breath, go play ball, and just be that natural athlete that you are. That's what Jaren brings to the table. Some of my most favorite throws that he made in our time this offseason was when I just said, go play ball, be the athlete that you are.
John, let's finish with this, our question of the day, and it's brought in some really fun answers. Who has more to prove this season? Is it Zach Wilson as a rookie quarterback, a number 2 overall pick in the NFL, or is it BYU as a team now that they're playing 7 Power 5s and don't have Zach Wilson?
I mean, both have a lot to prove. I think it would be easy to say it's Zach, right? Because the stage that he's playing on, the investment that the Jets have made, and just that market, right? If BYU loses a football game, it's not going to be on blast on the entire nation, right? But if the New York Jets, hit some rough patches and Zach is struggling, which could very well happen as a young quarterback, it will be on all those talk shows on ESPN. So, I mean, it's just there's so much at stake there. And I'm not trying to take anything away from BYU because they do have a lot to prove. And I would still say it's very close. But in terms of the national stage, there's a lot riding on those New York Jets and Zach Wilson right now.
John Beck on BYU Sports Nation, always entertaining and insightful. By the way, are you going to be in Las Vegas at the BYU-Arizona game?
You know what, man? I want to so bad. Byron Rex and I talk about it every day when we're out at the high school practices, but I haven't got my schedule yet for my 14-year-old son's team, and I'm the head coach. So if we get lucky and his game and we have 3 Beck boys in tackle football right now. If all their games can be done early enough, we'll hop on a flight and get there as quick as we can. But there's a chance that I may be coaching a 14U game right up to when that BYU game starts.
Oh, hey, priorities. We get it.
Do it with no shirt on.
Shirtless son. I have another shirtless son asking if he can run by.
Nice.
I don't know what's in that other room that they all need, but
shirt's optional.
Going swimming or something.
Let's go.
You know what? It's because right after this, the Beck family's heading to the beach for some waves.
Yes.
There you go.
That's the good life. John, great to talk with you, man. We'll do it again soon.
Sounds good. We'll see you guys.
John Beck on BYU Sports Nation.